If this message reaches my homeworld, let it be a warning. If it reaches my enemies, let it be a curse. My name is Azirael, once commander of the 7th Marauder Fleet. I was feared across the stars, until now. Until this moment, which will likely be my last. I have spent decades raiding trade routes, pillaging settlements, and carving a path through the weak and defenseless. We were sanctioned by the High Council, acting as their unseen hand, allowed to strike where diplomacy failed. We looted, we enslaved, we destroyed, and no one stopped us. Until now. Terra was supposed to be another easy mark, a young, naive species with no grand fleets, no orbital defenses, and no real understanding of the dangers lurking in the void. They barely knew how to harness their sun's energy, let alone fight a war beyond their own atmosphere. We saw their primitive outposts, their scattered settlements, and their lack of military coordination, and we thought they were weak, easy prey. We thought wrong. We struck fast, as we always did, bombarded key cities, overwhelmed their communications, and took what we wanted. Their adults fought back, but we have seen rebellion before. It was nothing new. We dealt with them easily enough, at first. Then, one of my raiders made a fatal mistake. A child, one of theirs, would not stop screaming. An annoyance, nothing more. So, he silenced it with his weapon. We assumed it was meaningless. They could create more. Their biology allowed for rapid reproduction, and by all accounts, they enjoyed the process. But their response was unlike anything we had ever seen. The child's mother attacked. Not with weapons, not with tactics. Just raw, unrelenting fury. She was shot 16 times before she fell, but not before she crushed my soldier's skull with his own weapon. And that was only the beginning. They recorded it, they spread it, they told the story. And suddenly, we weren't raiders anymore. We weren't pirates. We weren't even enemies. We were monsters. Violence erupted across every sector we occupied. The humans didn't fight like warriors. They fought like something else entirely. Their soldiers no longer sought victory. They sought vengeance. Their civilians took up arms, attacking with whatever they had. Entire colonies chose self-destruction over capture, taking our raiders down with them. They would rather die than let us take another child. And then we made our second mistake. We thought that by threatening more of their young, we could force them into submission. We believed that fear would break them. We thought wrong. Instead of surrender, they turned into something else. Something I do not have words for. They stopped caring about survival. They stopped fearing death. They hunted us relentlessly, without rest, without mercy. We burned their homes, but they only grew more determined. We took their worlds, and they turned the very ruins into weapons. Every loss only fueled their hatred. Every casualty only strengthened their resolve. We intercepted their transmissions. We saw what was happening back on their homeworld. Their governments collapsed overnight, not in fear, but in unity. Their entire species had one single, undeniable purpose: to erase us. Their allies have given them weapons, technology, warships beyond what we ever anticipated. The Keelan Confederation, once neutral, has openly supplied them with fleets. My own forces have been annihilated. 4 strongholds burned, 14 sectors lost. We are being wiped from existence. I tried everything. I tried surrender. I tried negotiation. I tried bargaining, offering reparations, hostages, anything. It didn't matter. They do not care about territory. They do not care about diplomacy. They do not care about peace. The only thing they care about is making sure we never hurt another child again. And now I see it. The moment we took that first innocent life, we signed our own death warrant. Heavy thuds on metal, a door being forced open. If anyone is left to hear this, know this truth. Never, never harm a human child. There will be no victory, no conquest, no survivors. They will not stop. They will not forgive. They will not forget. We thought it would break them. We thought they were weak. We thought wrong. And thus ends the final recording of Fleet Commander Zyril, one of the most feared pirate lords in the last 500 cycles. Since that message, humanity has wiped out 4 military stations and obliterated entire fleets in self-destructive attacks, crippling operations in over a dozen quadrants. This war is as good as lost. I formally recommend we offer full and unconditional surrender to the Keelan Confederation, with an agreement that no further weapons or technology be supplied to humanity. Furthermore, I propose that the Galactic Union immediately declare it a war crime to target human young under any circumstance. Perhaps if we act swiftly, they will realize that we are not all like the fallen pirate lord. Perhaps they will show restraint. Perhaps, but I fear we are already too late. How much longer? It started as a whisper. Then, it became a chant. Then, it became a question that haunted the entire galaxy. Everywhere on Earth, from the towering skyscrapers of megacities to the smallest rural villages, that question was being asked. How much longer? How much longer before retribution? How much longer before the stars burned in mankind's fury? The Keelan Confederation's arrival was being tracked by every network, their transmission of interstellar technology absorbed, replicated, weaponized. Humanity, fractured and divided for centuries, had united in one single cause. Not survival, not diplomacy. Vengeance. Every session of the newly forming United Earth government began the same way. A child's cry, the sound of a pirate's weapon discharging, the mother's scream. Every shipyard, every infantry training camp, every mech foundry, the recording played again and again, embedding itself into the minds of every soldier, engineer, and pilot. It wasn't just a tragedy anymore. It was a war hymn. And then the Keelan Confederation, allies of humanity, suppliers of technology, reluctant enablers of this new war, began to ask the same question. How much longer? How much longer before humanity was ready? How much longer before they unleashed themselves on the galaxy? And then they made a terrifying realization. They already had. Inside the Keelan High Command, a crisis meeting was called. Seated at the center of the chamber was Chief Anthropologist Varric, his scaled fingers twitching nervously as he addressed the council. Their horror stories are concerning. A Keelan politician scoffed, making a dismissive huff. What? Their alien invasion fiction? Absurd, exaggerated nonsense. Surely nothing to worry about. Varric shook his head. Not that. Their concept of fear itself. The council leaned in. Varric's tail twitched, a sign of extreme unease among his kind. Every threat they fear is an impossibility. Immortal monsters, physics-defying entities, creatures that break the laws of nature. To them, a threat must be godlike to be feared at all. Everything else, not worth worrying about. A deep silence filled the chamber. You misunderstand their nature, Varric continued. They do not see an enemy and ask, how do we negotiate? They do not ask, how do we surrender? No. Humans look at a threat and ask only one question, how do we kill it? The silence turned to unease. You've seen what they did to the pirate lord? Varric's voice lowered. They tore him apart, slowly, limbs first. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of their civilians dragged a pirate to his death behind a motorized ground vehicle. When we asked what happened, they handed us pieces. You are overreacting, a politician tried to argue, his voice lacking conviction. Varric's golden eyes narrowed. Am I? One of our observers asked a human pilot how they would deal with a jamming ship that disrupted AI piloting. Do you know what the pilot said? Just use a living pilot instead. 3 months later, the Keelan admiral stood aboard his flagship, eyes fixed on the human-led fleet preparing for battle. Let the humans take the first wave, he ordered. It was a decision made with reluctance and dread. Humanity had volunteered to lead the assault. No hesitation, no caution. And then the battle began. The Keelan admiral watched in horror as human fighters performed maneuvers that should have been suicidal. They skipped across the atmosphere like stones on water, confusing targeting systems, unleashing brutal waves of fire before vanishing into the clouds. Their transmissions were uncoded, audible to all sides. "Does anyone have a translation for yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker?" Nobody answered, because there was no answer. The battle doctrine was clear: secure orbit before deploying ground forces. Humans did not wait. The Keelan admiral's eyes widened as human dropships descended at breakneck speeds, their hulls glowing red from atmospheric entry. "They're going in before the defenses are neutralized. They'll be slaughtered." But they weren't, because humanity did not fight wars the way others did. The first wave of mechanized walkers hit the surface like meteor strikes, sending tremors through the battlefield. Instead of capturing strategic positions, they annihilated everything in sight. Missiles pounded buildings into dust, massive projectile cannons ripped through enemy strongholds, and energy shields designed to withstand siege warfare collapsed in minutes. The Pankan Alliance fought like every species before them. To win, humans fought like they wanted to kill. "Put the surface on screen," the admiral barked, "and broadcast this back home." The screen flickered to life. The dropships opened, and from the underbelly, humanoid figures emerged. They moved too precisely, too efficiently. The admiral's blood ran cold. "Are humans machines?" Then, the second transmission hit: a child's cry, a gunshot, a mother's scream, and the battlefield became hell. "They're not fighting a war," the admiral whispered. "They're executing revenge." The Pankan troops, disciplined and trained, fought to survive. Humans did not. They advanced with a reckless disregard for their own lives, their faces twisted masks of hatred. A close-up feed revealed a human soldier stabbing a Pankan warrior through the gut, with a knife attached to his gun. "They put knives on guns," the admiral stammered. Another feed showed a human picking up a severed limb and using it as a weapon. This was not war. This was something older, something more primal. This was the unrelenting fury of a species that had been wronged. And then the human admiral's voice crackled through the comms. "We don't need your help. This isn't a war. It's a reckoning." The Keelan admiral could only nod. "Tell them we'll take the next world. Later." The war was already won. Humanity had simply not finished killing yet. The question that remained: 14 worlds in 14 months. The war had reversed overnight. The Pankan Alliance begged for surrender, and the Keelan Confederation now faced a new, terrifying question. Will humanity ever stop? The Council debated endlessly, but one thing was certain. If peace was to be made, it would come at a cost. And so, the Keelan revered speaker made a proposal. "We will outlaw the targeting of human young. We will declare it a war crime, punishable by death." "Will that be enough for them?" someone asked. The speaker's gaze darkened. "We can only hope." Because the alternative was too terrifying to consider. The message that shook the stars. The Pankan Alliance had ruled their corner of the galaxy for nearly 1,000 years. They had conquered, subjugated, and crushed resistance with overwhelming force. And now, they were begging. "This is Chancellor Virax of the Pankan High Council. We request immediate negotiations for total and unconditional surrender. Please, we beg you, answer us." The transmission echoed across the stars, sent on every diplomatic channel, translated into every known language. For the first time in galactic history, the rulers of a vast empire were pleading for mercy. The response: silence. The Keelan Confederation, once hesitant allies of humanity, were now facing a terrifying realization. They had handed humanity the keys to interstellar war. And now, they were no longer sure if they had unleashed a savior or a monster. Inside the Keelan High Command, Admiral Vorak sat in his war chamber, staring at the latest battle footage. The 14th world had fallen, but fallen was the wrong word. It had been erased. Human fleets hadn't just defeated the Pankan defenders. They had hunted them down, refusing to accept surrender in battle, annihilating every last warship, every last soldier. And on the ground, the human war machine had moved with ruthless efficiency. Massive war mechs crushed enemy strongholds under their feet. Infantry with terrifying precision cut through enemy lines, taking no prisoners. Tactical bombers reduced entire cities to rubble. The Pankan had already lost, but humanity wasn't stopping. The broadcast of humanity's warpath spread across the stars, and the galaxy watched in horror. "They aren't just fighting to win," a Zelvari diplomat whispered. "They're fighting to erase an entire species." "We have to intervene," cried the Orothian Prime Minister. "If we don't stop them, the Pankan won't be the last." But no one moved. No fleets were sent. No armies were gathered. Because every species remembered what started this war. A single child, a single mother, a single act of unforgivable cruelty. And now, the galaxy understood something terrifying. Humans were not like other species. Most civilizations waged war for power, for resources, for expansion. Humans waged war for something far worse. They waged war for vengeance, and vengeance did not stop until the enemy was no more. The Pankan's last hope chancellor, Virax, stood inside the shattered remains of his war chamber, trembling as he played the latest intercepted transmission. A human voice crackled through the static. "The Keelan say we should take prisoners. They say we should accept surrender. But we remember the screams of our children. There will be no peace." Virax's body went cold. He turned to his advisors, his voice barely a whisper. "They won't stop. They're going to kill us all." A long silence followed. Then one of his generals spoke. "Then we do what they do." Virax frowned. "What do you mean?" The general's hands shook. "We fight like them. We stop thinking like soldiers. We stop thinking about strategy. If they won't stop, then we make them afraid. We do whatever it takes." Virax's blood ran cold. "You want us to become monsters?" The general's eyes darkened. "It's the only way to survive monsters." Inside the Keelan assembly, a decision had been made. A desperate final attempt to stop the unstoppable force they had created. The revered speaker stood before the council, his voice heavy. "We will make it law, throughout the entire galaxy, that no species may ever harm a human child. It will be a war crime of the highest order, and any species that does so will be given to the humans for judgment. Perhaps this will be enough. Perhaps they will stop." The Keelan sent the offer to the United Human Command. For the first time since the war began, humanity answered. A single transmission, no video, no long-winded negotiations, no conditions, just 4 words. "That will be acceptable." And just like that, the war ended. The galaxy breathed again, but in the back of their minds, one question remained. Had humanity stopped because they forgave? Or had they simply decided that their vengeance was complete? The galaxy did not want to know the answer. The war was over, or so they thought. The Pankan Alliance had surrendered. The Keelan Confederation had enacted the Galactic War Crime Mandate, making it illegal for any species to harm a human child under any circumstances. The galaxy had breathed a sigh of relief. But humanity's silence was deafening. For weeks after the war ended, no new orders came from the United Human Command, no diplomatic envoys, no trade negotiations, no calls for peace agreements, just silence. And that silence was terrifying, because the galaxy had seen what humans did when they were angry. The question now was, what would they do next? The Pankan's fate, a species living in fear. Chancellor Virax sat alone in what remained of his war chamber. The once great Pankan Alliance had been reduced to nothing. Of their 76 controlled systems, only 6 remained. Every day, reports came in of Pankin officers vanishing, entire outposts turning to silent ghost stations with no sign of struggle, just emptiness. It wasn't the humans. It wasn't their war fleets. It was the memory of them. Pankin soldiers were deserting in record numbers, terrified of a vengeance that might not even come. Entire planets fell into chaos, their leaders paranoid that humanity had not truly forgiven them. They had surrendered, but had humanity accepted it? Virax didn't know, and that was the worst part. Inside the Keelan Confederation High Council, a secret meeting had been called. "We must do something," Admiral Vorak growled, his claws tapping the table. "Humanity has become the most dangerous force in the galaxy, and we are the ones who gave them the power to do it." The council chamber was silent. No one could deny the truth. 14 worlds had fallen in 14 months. The Pankin had been shattered. Humanity's technology had advanced decades in mere weeks. And now, nobody knew what they wanted. "Have they made any demands?" one counselor asked. "No," another replied. "That's what frightens me the most. They haven't asked for territory, resources, or alliances. Nothing at all." "Then what are they waiting for?" "I don't know." And for the first time in Keelan history, an admiral of the fleet whispered words that had never been spoken before. "Perhaps we should strike first." The chamber froze. "What did you say?" Vorak's voice was quiet, dangerous. "I said perhaps we should strike first, before they turn against us." Admiral Jonas Mercer, Supreme Commander of the United Human Fleet, stood aboard the bridge of the UNS Retribution, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. The war was over. The Pankin were broken. The Keelan were afraid. And now it was time for humanity to decide what came next. "Sir," his second-in-command spoke up, "we're receiving reports from our deep space intelligence networks." "What kind of reports?" The officer hesitated. "Surveillance shows Keelan fleet movements along our shared border, increased ship production, secret military meetings." Mercer's expression didn't change. "They're considering it then?" The officer nodded. "It's possible, sir. They might see us as a threat." Mercer exhaled slowly. "They're not wrong." Silence. Then Mercer turned toward his communications officer. "Open a secure channel to the Keelan Confederation High Command, now." The Keelan Confederation High Council was in the middle of an emergency session when the transmission came through. It was a live feed from Admiral Jonas Mercer himself. The chamber fell silent. The human appeared calm, cold, in control, and then he spoke. "We know." One of the Keelan counselors shifted nervously. "No." "What?" Mercer's gaze was unshaken. "We know you're considering an attack against us." The chamber froze. "You're building fleets, holding secret meetings, preparing for what you think is an inevitable war." His voice was steady. "I'm here to tell you, that would be a mistake." A long silence followed. Then Admiral Vorak spoke. "And why is that?" Mercer leaned forward. "Because we do not forget." The chamber's temperature seemed to drop. "You have seen what we do to those who harm our young. You have seen what happens when we are wronged. But you have not yet seen what happens when we are betrayed. Do not test us." Silence. Then the transmission cut off. And for the first time in galactic history, an empire that had never known fear felt it. The Keelan Confederation now faced a choice. Would they attempt to contain humanity, risking a war that could end them? Or would they accept the new reality? A reality where humans were no longer prey. A reality where humans were no longer equals. A reality where humans were something else entirely. And for the first time, a terrifying thought entered the minds of the galactic elite. Humanity does not need to conquer, not need to rule. They simply need to exist, and the galaxy will never challenge them again. The Keelan's decision. a choice between survival and extinction. For 3 days, the Keelan High Council debated. For 3 days, they reviewed every intercepted human transmission, every battle report, every psychological profile. And for 3 days, they failed to reach an answer. Can we even defeat them? Should we even try? If we do nothing, how long before they see us as a threat anyway? The debates went nowhere, because deep down, they all knew the truth. If war came, it wouldn't be a battle. It would be annihilation. And yet, they were afraid of peace too. Because peace meant accepting a new galactic order, one where humanity stood above all others, and that was a truth too terrible to admit. The Keelan never declared war. They were not that foolish. But instead of striking openly, they turned to espionage, sabotage, and quiet resistance. They hired mercenaries to attack human outposts, making it look like scattered Pankin remnants. They funded insurgencies on planets occupied by human forces. They began secret talks with other species, whispers of an anti-human coalition forming in the shadows. They believed they could contain humanity. They believed they could slow them down. They believed they were still in control. They were wrong. Humanity did not retaliate openly. They did not issue threats. They did not call for war. They did not demand retribution. They simply acted. A Keelan listening post monitoring human fleet movements? Gone. No debris, no wreckage, just missing. A secret meeting of anti-human leaders? The entire room collapsed into a singularity, crushed into atoms before they could speak. Mercenary fleets attacking human supply lines? Their ships arrived at the wrong coordinates, warped into the gravity well of a dying star. No battles, no negotiations, no warnings, just eradication. And with each silent, unseen retaliation, the Keelan realized something far more terrifying than war. They had already lost. Because humanity wasn't just stronger. They were smarter. They were faster. They were something else entirely. We cannot win a direct war. We cannot win a hidden war. We must end this before it's too late. Desperate, the Keelan Council issued one final order. They activated Project Blackout, a last-ditch effort to neutralize humanity's influence. Using classified technology, they launched a pulse across the galactic communication network, a single broadcast to every major species, every government, every ruling council. A warning, a plea, a last attempt to unite the galaxy against Earth. Humanity must be stopped. They do not seek power. They do not seek control. They simply exist. And that is enough to make the entire galaxy fear them. If we do not act now, we will never act again. The message was sent. The message was received. And the galaxy listened. For 3 days there was silence. Humanity gave no response, no transmissions, no statements, nothing. And then, they spoke. A single human transmission broadcast across the entire network. We hear you. You fear us. You think we are your enemy. We are not. But if you force us to be, then you will learn what war truly means. The transmission ended, and the galaxy held its breath, because they understood the unspoken words beneath that message. This was never a war. You have only seen retaliation. Do not make us show you what we are truly capable of. And for the first time, the galaxy realized something even worse than their fear of humanity. They were still holding back. The final question: what will humanity do next? With the galaxy on the brink, humanity now faced a decision. Would they strike first and end all opposition before it could rise? Would they turn inward, letting fear rule for them? Or would they walk away, knowing they would forever be seen as something beyond understanding? No one knew the answer. Not even humanity. Because this was no longer just about war. This was about what they would become, and the galaxy could only wait for their answer. If you're enjoying the journey so far, take a moment to like this video, drop a comment on how you think this epic tale will unfold, and share it with anyone who loves an epic sci-fi saga. I've put a lot of effort into crafting this story to make it something truly unforgettable, and your feedback means the world to me. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to be the first to experience more stories that will take you to the stars and beyond. Let's keep the adventure going, because humanity isn't finished yet. The galaxy prepares for the unthinkable. The Pancan Alliance was gone. The Keelan Confederation was unraveling. And now, for the first time in recorded history, every major galactic power had a single, shared thought. If we do not stop them now, we never will. The Keelan's Project Blackout had done its job. The broadcast had united the galaxy in fear. The rulers of once rival civilizations gathered in secret, forming the largest coalition ever conceived. The objective? Contain humanity before they decide to destroy us all. And so, they prepared one final move, a coordinated preemptive strike. The Last War Council, the decision that changed everything inside the hidden war chamber of the Galactic Coalition, the most powerful leaders of the remaining empires, sat in silence. "We must strike first," a Zelvari warlord hissed. "They have given us no reason to believe they intend to conquer us," an Orothian diplomat countered. "They could have done so already." "That is precisely why they are dangerous," the Keelan Admiral Vorak snapped. "They do not need to rule to hold power over us. If we wait any longer, fear alone will let them dominate us." "Then we are in agreement?" the revered speaker asked, voice heavy with uncertainty. A long pause. Then, slowly, one by one, they gave their answer. "We are." And with those words, the fate of the galaxy was sealed. The first strike, a fatal mistake. The attack was swift, coordinated, and merciless. 500 fleets from 16 major civilizations struck simultaneously, targeting human-controlled space, colonies, and fleet installations. "This is not war," Vorak had declared. "This is survival." They expected a long, drawn-out campaign. They expected humanity to retaliate with brutal force. They expected to lose entire fleets in the process. But what happened next was something no one could have prepared for. Because humanity never fought back. They never fired a single shot. They never launched a single defense. Because by the time the fleets arrived, there was nothing left. The impossible reality. The invading fleets found empty planets, abandoned stations, silent battlefields, no human ships, no human soldiers, no human presence. It was as if they had never been there at all. "Where are they?" the Keelan Admiral growled, scanning the desolate ruins. There was no battle damage, no signs of evacuation, just emptiness. "Sir," a communications officer stammered, "we're receiving a message." The Admiral's blood turned to ice. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life. And there, standing alone in the darkness, was Admiral Jonas Mercer. His voice was calm, measured, unshaken. "We knew this day would come." The chamber fell silent. "We knew that fear would drive you to this. So we chose to leave." The gathered leaders stared in shock. "You misunderstand us. We never wanted to rule you. We never wanted war. But we knew you would never accept the truth. You fear us because you do not understand us." The image zoomed out, revealing Mercer standing aboard a colossal structure, larger than any known space station, larger than any known world. Something new, something impossible. A Dyson sphere, a fully constructed operational Dyson sphere, a structure capable of harnessing the power of an entire star. You wanted to stop us, but we were never here to fight you. We were here to leave you behind. The screen went dark, and the galaxy finally understood. The end of an era, and the birth of a new one. Humanity was gone. Not dead, not defeated. Gone. They had abandoned their colonies, their fleets, their worlds, and in their place, they had built something beyond comprehension. A new home, a self-sustaining megastructure, a new civilization beyond the reach of war, politics, or fear. They had stepped beyond the petty struggles of the galactic empires. They had transcended the need for war. And the message was clear. We are no longer part of your galaxy. You may fight among yourselves. You may conquer, scheme, and struggle for power. But we will not be part of it. We have outgrown you. And just like that, humanity was no longer a player in galactic affairs. They had become something else entirely, something greater, something untouchable. What had they done? The galaxy had feared humanity's conquest. Instead, they had witnessed their ascension. They had expected a war to end all wars. Instead, they had been left behind. And now, for the first time in history, the rulers of the galaxy faced a new, terrifying truth. They were alone. The one species that had held the galaxy together through sheer presence had simply moved on. They were never our enemies, the Keelan revered speaker whispered. They were our future. And now, that future was gone. The galaxy was left to its own fate. And the only question that remained was, without them, what happens next? The silence after humanity. The galaxy had feared humanity's conquest. Instead, they had been left behind. No wars, no retribution, no final battle, just emptiness. The Dyson sphere was sealed, its colossal megastructure orbiting its captive star like an eternal monolith. No transmissions, no contact, no signs of life. Humanity had not just left the war, they had left the galaxy. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the great empires of the stars realized something truly terrifying. They were alone. The collapse of an age. The absence of humanity sent ripples across the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition, once a mighty force forged in fear of Earth, crumbled within a year. Without a common enemy, the alliance is fractured. The Pankan remnants, a species once mighty, now broken, tried to rebuild, but found that their name was forever cursed in galactic history. The Keelan Confederation, the once great orchestrators of war, lost their purpose. And as time passed, something became clear. The war hadn't been about power, it had been about balance. And humanity had been the balance. Without them, the galaxy was adrift, directionless, waiting for something that would never come. The Galactic Council's last debate. Years after humanity's departure, the last major powers gathered one final time. The question was simple. Do we attempt to contact them? The debate lasted for days. They chose to leave. We should respect that. But what if they are watching? What if they're waiting to see if we've learned? If we call to them and they do not answer, what does that mean for us? Worse, what if they do answer? Finally, after much deliberation, a decision was made. A message was sent, a single transmission, broadcast on every frequency, aimed toward the silent Dyson sphere. A plea, a request, a question. Are you still there? And then? They waited. The answer that never came. No response. No change. The Dyson sphere remained dark. Days passed, then weeks, then years. Humanity was gone. And that, more than anything, was the lesson they had left behind. The galaxy had feared humanity's rule. But what they had never considered was a far worse possibility. Humanity had never wanted to rule. They had never wanted to conquer. They had simply looked at the galaxy and walked away, because it was not worth their time. And in the end, that was the greatest humiliation of all. They did not destroy us. They did not enslave us. They simply left us behind. And now, the galaxy had to ask itself the hardest question of all. Without them, are we worthy of continuing? Epilogue. A future without humanity centuries passed. The greatest empires faded into irrelevance. The fear of humanity became legend. New species rose. New wars were fought. But the balance was never restored, because no matter how much the galaxy advanced, no matter how many civilizations rose and fell, no matter how many wars raged across the stars, one truth remained. Humanity had left, and they were never coming back. Or were they? Because on the farthest edge of the known universe, in the deepest reaches of space, something stirred. The Dyson sphere, long silent, long dormant, flickered, a single pulse of light, so faint that no one saw it, a whisper in the dark, a warning, a promise. We were here once, and if you make the same mistakes again, we will return. But until then, the galaxy belonged to them, for now. This has been a journey of war, fear, and the terrifying realization that humanity was never the enemy, but something far greater. What do you think happened to humanity? Did they truly ascend, or are they still watching? Wow, what an epic conclusion. Humanity has truly left its mark on the galaxy, and you've witnessed their rise. Thank you so much for being part of this incredible journey. If you love this story, please show your support by hitting like, sharing your thoughts in the comments below, and sharing this video with all your sci-fi friends. Every like, comment, and share helps this channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you stories like this. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another chapter of these epic adventures. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me keep working hard to bring you the best content. Until next time, keep exploring the unknown, and remember, we are just getting started. See you in the next one.